Oh, no, it goes on. So as soon as the zebra hit the ground, two male lions materialized out of the grass. And we had been there for 30 minutes and not seen them. So not even the tracker was able to see them. They just appeared out of seemingly nowhere.
Hello and welcome to One-Off Travel Stories. I'm your host, Andrew Tawaschurna. Here each episode, I chat with someone about one of their favorite travel stories. That one story they've told countless times to friends and family around the dinner table. On this episode, we'll be joined by Alice Abyss. She's a former intrepid traveler. She's settled down a little bit in her home country as of late. But while she was traveling, she taught scuba in the United Arab Emirates. She also worked in sub-Saharan Africa, which we'll hear a little bit about today. She hitchhiked through Mexico and traveled around Southeast Asia, among lots of other places. Alice now owns her own publishing company called Asclepius Press. She publishes both her work and the work of independent authors. I'll have her links up on the website, oneofftravelstories.com, but definitely check her out. She's got a travel memoir out called Take My Breath Far Away, from stories around the world about her travels. Speaking of which, she's going to tell us a story today about her time in Africa. She was working in Malawi, but really wanted to see some of the bigger animals in Africa. So she headed to South Luangwa National Park in Zambia. And, the experience was quite something, but I'll let her tell us more. Hey, Alice, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I like to usually open up by asking where are you calling in from? I know we're video calling, so yeah, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from the United States.
In your home country, in your home state, I take it? Like, are you home?
Yes. Home with my dog.
That's awesome. What type of dog do you have?
She's a mutt. I think she's got some Dalmatian in her.
Well, it's great to have you on today. I know before we jump into the story, I'd love to hear a little bit about, some of the work that you've done. You're an author. I believe you're also a scuba instructor. How did you get, and I should say one of your books is specifically about your travels. But before we jump into travels, how did you get into writing?
I've always been interested in writing, but as I've traveled, it has fueled my passion for writing. So my first book was a fantasy. It's called Pharmakites, and it's not about travel, but it's influenced by my travels. So even though it's a fantasy and so much of it is made up, I could visualize the different places because it's all based on places I've been. Like there's sea caves and there's forests, and I try to add immersive details based on reality. So travel influences even my fantastical writing. And then my book, Take My Breath Far Away, is a travel memoir. And actually the experience we're going to talk about today catalyzed me writing everything down because I was like, whoa, that was crazy. I should start keeping track of these experiences and sharing them with others. That's
fascinating. Traveling has sort of, if I'm understanding correctly, kind of fueled your creativity for whether that's not just travel memoirs, but your fantasy writing as well.
Absolutely. And specifically nature and the way that nature is different in different places. I think that that's my biggest inspiration.
Yeah, I can understand that, the sort of variety you get where you might not have thought of, I don't know, it's like a waterfall. You might not have thought you'd ever see a waterfall so unique, and then you'll see another one where you're like, wow, you get blown away again. Something along those lines.
Yes, and the energy of different places, because no two waterfalls are the same. And even just day by day, they're different. So, and that's one thing I really enjoy with traveling is I haven't always traveled and been moving around constantly. I think that like staying in one place, you can learn a lot more about how it changes over time
Yeah.
and how it also stays the same. Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to live abroad or spend a longer period of time in somewhere away from home, if you will?
Yeah. So the first time I ever left the United States, actually, I might have gone on a cruise when I was little, but the first time I really left, I went to the United Arab Emirates
Mm-hmm.
and I was there for 1 year and I was teaching scuba diving. And it was culture shock. It was everything. It shook me to my core. It changed everything about how I see myself, how I see the world around me, and taught me to question everything. And I was able to dive the same reef day after day after day and learn, okay, these fish are here at this time of day and this ray is going to be here when the moon is full. Like everything comes together when you're able to visit the same place again and again and again. So I love to travel. I love to see different things, but I also love to become intimate with one spot.
That's beautiful. I think a lot of people I speak to, myself included, I think I'm guilty of always wanting to keep moving and see new places, and um, maybe have missed out on times of getting that understanding that you're talking about.
Yeah, and then after the United Arab Emirates, I was in Malawi for about 4 months. So that's when I took a jaunt over to Zambia. Um, and then I spent about 7 months in Bali in a tiny village. And I got to learn all those fish, all those reefs. Um, so I really love staying in one spot, even though I love traveling. It's kind of ironic. But even like then I went to California and I was farming. Then I got to learn how, like, I love to learn how nature changes and things like that. But then I got to learn about how man can change nature and how, like, we can sow the seeds and create new environments.
Yeah, and you get to sort of watch the cycle um, of development throughout. Usually a cyclical year, but there's longer cycles and shorter cycles. Were you working in all these places, scuba diving, instructing, if I recall correctly?
Yes. Sometimes and sometimes not. I've been working on writing for a while, so sometimes I was able to support my
Yeah.
writing blogs. I didn't release books while I was traveling. I sold a manuscript to a publisher, but a lot of it was like writing and a lot of it was traveling really, really cheap. I've done hitchhiking and,
Yeah.
kind of like working with the restaurants. Hey, I'll leave you a TripAdvisor review if you feed me. Like, really kind of bumming it all around the world.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I feel like, especially online, there's a lot of great information from people solo traveling about how to basically do it on the cheap. Do it on the cheap.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who is interested in that, I'd recommend Workaway, couch surfing, worldwide opportunities on organic farms, and then just kind of meeting people. I think like if you have skills that you could offer, like sometimes I would do photography for hotels, different things like that, like trade and barter systems. It can work. And travelers, you will always find serendipity. So if you just trust wherever you're going, you'll be on the right path. You'll meet the right people. It kind of works out.
I love that perspective. I think it's a great way, and I big supporter of everyone who just does what they can to travel, because, as you said, it inspired you for your writing. I think it can inspire people for all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, before I ask you to jump into the story, I also noticed you do a little juggling. is that something you've always kind of done?
Yes, well, I did grow up in the circus, and I've taken that on the road with me. I used to travel with my slack line. So, for people who aren't familiar, that's kind of like a seat belt that you tie between two trees and you walk on it. So, I love to slackline. I remember in Africa, I was teaching all these kids in the village how to slackline and helping them walk on it. It was so cute. And yeah, I love to juggle too. It's a good way to relax. I mean, and you could juggle with anything on the road. Like you might have seen the plastic bottles that I was juggling.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
anything could be juggled.
That's
And
awesome. I also juggle. So
oh,
it
okay.
stood out to me, but I've been struggling with five ball for many months now.
Struggling with juggling.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I know you've got a great story lined up for us. So, if you don't mind, could you give a little bit of context about the story itself? You know, what year it was, if you can remember. Where were you, or where were you going, and why were you going there?
It was September of 2017, and I had been in Africa for a few months. I was in the bush helping out on a wildlife reserve, and that reserve, it didn't have any big predators. It had giraffes, zebras, and it was huge, but it wasn't big enough for lions and elephants. And um, some of the people at the reserve knew that I wanted to see lions and elephants, and they said, "Okay, you've got to go to South Luangwa." And I had set it up. I was going to go, and then they were like, "Oh, well, we want to watch a rugby match, and you'll have to go next week." And I went with the flow. So okay, which ended up being very
Yeah.
lucky. Like instead of forcing, no, 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 I really want to go, going with the flow ended up in my favor. So before I left, uh, one of the people at the reserve, he said, "Well, you're gonna look up South Luangwa National Park, and you're gonna see pictures of a lion kill, and you're gonna think that that's gonna happen, but I worked there for 8 years and I never saw that." And I said, "No, like I never expect anything in nature ever. Like
Right.
I would be happy just to like see where the lions live. I wasn't even thinking I'm going to see a lion. I was thinking I'm just fortunate to be here." Anyway, so
Yeah. And sorry, you said you were working on a wildlife reserve. So I think I missed this, but which country were you in at the time?
in Malawi.
In Malawi. Okay. And I guess how did you? I'm just curious. How did you find a wildlife reserve to work at?
That's a good question. When I wasn't like necessarily working. I was kind of just like helping out and stuff with their
Yeah.
helping out with their like volunteer program, helping them wrangle the city folk in the bush. um,
Yeah.
which is a challenge because there are so many snakes there. My God. Um, so when I left the UAE where I was teaching diving, like I love to go to the UAE, but I knew in my heart and my soul that I had to go to Africa. I knew like from the moment that I could start thinking that I had to go to Africa, it was like one of the first things I ever said. It was just this fire burning in me. So when I left the UAE, I sent out like 5,000 emails, which sounds crazy, and it was. I sent out 5,000 emails to every single place in Africa. This was before I knew about Workaway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I sent out so many emails and I got 3 no's. Like out of 5,000 emails, I got 3 people that said outright no, no way. And then I just got one yes. And that's all it takes to change your life is one yes. You could get
Yeah.
so many no's and it really doesn't matter. But so yeah, I ended up on that wildlife reserve and it was, oh my God, it was so beautiful.
That's amazing. So, Malawi was sort of your first stop in Africa, and by that point, you hadn't seen kind of big game on the like some of the big game, if you will, like the lions. So this was kind of like, hey, you want to get out there and you want to go to where they are.
Yes, exactly. It was, for listeners who aren't familiar, I wanted to go to a Big Five reserve. So Big Five is the top 5 animals in Africa most likely to kill you, according to hunters, right? So not including the mosquitoes; those are really the worst. But
Right.
um, the Big Five, it's 3 herbivores, 2 carnivores: the African buffalo, the rhino, and the lion and the leopard. And the rhino is only in North Luangwa. They might have introduced him to South Luangwa, so it's technically big 4, not big 5, at least when I was there. And the elephant, of course, the elephant. It's the elephant, the buffalo, the rhino, the lion, and the leopard are the big 5. So I wanted to go and see them in their natural habitat. So my supervisor at the wildlife reserve said, you've got to go to South Luangwa. Like, it's so beautiful. And it was in the end of September. So this, to set the scene, this is the end of the dry season. It hadn't rained for months and everything was orange. The animals, they get so skinny in the dry season. This was the very end. The lions were hungry. The zebras, they don't have enough to drink. Like, it's really like the toughest time of the year for the animals. So that's when I set out into the bush. I took buses for 14 hours, and one of the buses broke down and I had to hitchhike with a police officer. I finally got to the that was my first time hitchhiking. I finally got to the lodge, and I got there in the middle of the night. And in Africa, in the bush, the bush is never silent. So the night birds were singing, the night bugs were cricketing, the frogs were ribbiting. You know, everything is always alive in the African bush. And I set up my tent. Set up this tent on the bank of the most croc and hippo infested river in the world, right on the border of the national park, next to a lodge. I could very well have slept in the lodge. No, I wanted to sleep in my tent. A leopard came and visited me in the night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that gave me a good fright. That terrified me. The elephants, they came, they sang all around my tent. I had lemon flavored cough drops that I was traveling with, which I don't recommend if you're going to camp in the African bush, because all the elephants wanted to come and check it out. They were eating the flowers off the top of my tent. One knocked down a tree next to my tent. It was so wild. So wild. At first, I was like, oh, I wonder why everyone else is camping in a vehicle.
Yeah.
Why is no one else in the tent?
It kind of sounds like a little, almost like a fairy tale with all the animals coming around, like meandering around you. Had you done much like camping? Maybe, obviously not in Africa necessarily, but it sounds like you were pretty comfortable with camping anyway, being out in nature. I mean, you talked a lot about nature thus far too.
Well, that was actually my first time ever camping by myself.
Oh my.
I was camping one night before that with my friend's family on Christmas. But that was my first time camping by myself. But there was just something that told me that I was going to be okay. And I had this burning passion for the African bush. I still have it in me. And I just knew, like, no, I'm not going inside the lodge. I want to sleep in the wild.
Okay, well, the lodge was not too far away as well. You wanted to be outside in the wild, as you say.
Yeah, in the wild, and it got a little wild there. I mean, I don't want to get too derailed from the main story, but in the middle of the night, I heard these baboons going crazy, and I sit up in my tent, and I'm like, that's so weird, because baboons sleep at night. And then everything so silent. There's no more frogs. There's no more birds. There's no more bugs. And I'm like, that's pretty bizarre. I think, okay, I should just go back to sleep. Then I hear the tiniest little meow next to my tent. And I'm still thinking, okay, I mean, it's probably like a serval or a car call. I don't want to worry too much. And then I hear like the guttural, low grunt of a mother leopard. Oh my God. Totally frozen in fear. And then I woke up the next day. I saw the leopard had urinated on my tent. And I mean, I had the opportunity to sleep inside, but I was like, no, that leopard is going to protect me from the other leopards.
Well, that's a good way to think about it, I guess. I would probably be like, I've had enough of camping now. I'm going to go in, but maybe you're a bit more courageous.
I'm a strong advocate of prey versus predator mentality. So I think that if you think of yourself as prey, you will become prey.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's how it's been for me with like sharks, barracudas, all kinds of animals. I think you have to bluff,
Stay calm.
even when you're not right. When you're not feeling brave, you have to pretend like you're brave.
Yeah. Yeah. That's certainly good advice if you find yourself in one of those situations.
Yeah, just pretend like you're brave. I mean, I was charged by a wildebeest while I was on foot, and I just kicked up some dust and threw my arms around, and he walked away. He didn't want to hurt me, you know?
I don't know if I know. Again, I mean, good for you that you're able to do that, because you're right. I mean, you do need to be calm in those moments and decide the best course of action. And a lot of times it's bluffing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you spent your first night there. You've already experienced a lot of the animals in the bush. Which next?
Drank some coffee, and I booked a safari. So they do, typically in the bush, they'll do a morning drive and then a night drive. So I went on both. Oh my God, I saw the cubs nursing off the mother lions. I felt like the luckiest person in the world.
Wow.
Slept in the tent without sleeping, like laid down in the tent. Probably didn't sleep at all. And then the next day, I booked another morning drive. And normally when I'm traveling, I want to get lost. I don't want a tour guide. But it's harder, when you're surrounded by lions. You can't just walk around. You could walk around, but it might be the last walk you take.
Right.
So I was in a 4x4 safari vehicle, and that morning drive, we saw a leopard in a tree. We saw a leopard walking around. It was amazing. Elephant came right up to the vehicle, stuck his trunk in my face, snorted all over me. We just keep going on, and I'm thinking, this just can't get any better. I'm thinking, like, this is my bucket list. I've done it. Check, check, check. I'm feeling like so grateful. I think that I'm just the luckiest person in the world. Well, little did I know I was going to get even luckier. So then we keep driving, and the dense forest kind of falls away, and then we're in, it's just dead trees and a ravine, because it's the dry season. So the river might be like 30 feet deep in the wet season, and then it just turns into a canyon. So we see this tiny trickle of water and 3 zebras and like 6 lionesses all staring at those zebras, all hidden in the grass. And then the tracker, he parks the car and he turns around. He says to me and this Australian family, he says, "We're about to be very lucky." And so I'd been taking scuba divers around for a year before that, and I knew you don't make promises that aren't going to deliver.
Right.
So I was like, "Whoa, we're gonna see the action here!" And oh my God, I don't know how the lions knew that the zebras were going to run up that way. I don't know how they knew it, but the zebras, they're drinking their water, and it's 2 mares and a 3-year-old. So a 2.5, 3-year-old. So it's a sub-adult. So this zebra was old enough. He could have walked off on his own. He could have started his own life. But, oh man. So the 2 mares, they walk up out of the ravine. The lions go after them, and they get away. And then the little zebra is just in the ravine by himself.
Oh, no.
He's got these big eyes. He heard the lions chase down his mother. He heard that. But he's like, oh no, do I walk along the ravine? You can see him looking. Do I walk down there, or do I go to try to find my mother? And he made the wrong decision. So that little zebra ran up the ravine and right into the lion's trap. There was one female, leapt out of the grass, grabbed him on his haunches, and he's bucking, he's kicking, he's trying to get away. Then he ran straight into another lioness who was hidden in the grass, grabbed him on his chest, and pulled him to the ground. So it was so coordinated. It was incredible to watch the way that the lionesses planned the attack. Like, they didn't just happen to catch the zebra.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, it sounds like you had a vantage point. It's amazing that you could see their setup, if that makes sense. Like, you could see what they were kind of planning, as you said, and how they knew where the zebras might go next.
Yes, I have no idea how they knew, because the zebras could have walked in the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's interesting. And crazy. I mean, as you said, you were speaking to someone at the reserve who basically said, you know, you're not going to see, you probably won't see too much, so don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, so, oh my God, I was so excited to go back and show them the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you may have, did you just see like all the big five and then a bunch of other animals as well?
Well, I've never seen a rhino because, like, the
Okay.
Luangwa National Park, at least 7 years ago when this happened, the southern portion is open to safari, and then the northern portion is, or it was, like, for rhinos only. Not for rhinos only, but, like, protected. Like, no tourists could come. It was, like, locked down for anti-poaching reasons. So I've never seen a rhino, but yeah, I saw hundreds and hundreds of buffalo, and then it's insane because you see all these buffalo, and then you're like, okay, you just gotta look around and you'll see a lion. Wherever there's hundreds of buffalo, there's lions just following them. It's so amazing.
I probably would have been a little heartbroken to see, because the younger zebra, I know that's just the cycle of life, right? But always tough anyway.
Well, that's why this experience stuck with me, because it was both beautiful and horrifying, thrilling and depressing. There's a duality to this event in nature that it has kind of shaped the way that I see the world, the way that I see everything in life. Like, yeah, I mean, it's brought me down a path where, like, I've hunted my own food because I'm like, yeah, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as a hunter as a lion, though. I miss a lot.
I think that's the duality is a great way to put it. It's tough, but life can be tough. So after that, I mean, was that the end of sort of your tour, if you will? I know you were in a vehicle with another family.
Oh no, it goes on. So as soon as the zebra hit the ground, 2 male lions materialized out of the grass.
Oh, okay.
And we had been there for 30 minutes and not seen them. So not even the tracker was able to see them. They just appeared out of seemingly nowhere. And one of them was not albino, but really, really pale. So it's like, he was able to hide from us. It's terrifying and also amazing how well these cats are able to hide. So they appeared, and then there's 8 lions going after the zebra, and the zebra is fighting for its life. The thing is, like, tigers, leopards, solitary cats, they go right for the throat. They want the animal to be incapacitated, because if they get injured, they can't hunt anymore. But for the lions, especially at the end of the dry season, they're so hungry that they don't care if the zebra is still alive. If they get hurt, they have their pride to rely on. So they ate the zebra alive. The zebra is kicking, trying to get away. He's still fighting for his life. So I thought the zebra, like, it's very sad that the zebra died. But at the same time, it was also inspiring to watch the zebra never give up. Like, not until its last breath did the zebra give up. He even reached up and bit a tuft of hair out of the big male lion. And that's when one of the females said, okay, I'll put him down. Like, it took so much for them to finally put the zebra down, but the zebra never gave up on his life. I thought that was, like, incredible to witness, the fight in the animal, the fight till the very end. So that zebra inspired me so much. I got a tattoo of that little zebra. I
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved it. And then, so after we watched the zebra go down, they radioed for the other safari vehicles to come and watch. So these lions were just feasting for an hour, and there was a few more vehicles came to watch that, and eventually the lion started to get into a fight. So you can imagine this 800-pound cat standing up on its haunches, slapping the other one, and the roaring and the screaming. Oh my god, it was so intense. Like when you see it on National Geographic, that's like 1% of the noise.
That's unreal. That's crazy. How far away from like when you were sitting there in the vehicle, how far, like did they ever notice you?
Yeah, so when we first pulled up and we saw the lionesses and they were getting into formation, one of them walked so close to the vehicle that her whiskers brushed up against it, and I was like, oh man, this is crazy.
The tension in the air, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were I had a 200 millimeter lens, which was able to like zoom in and get it. But then once the zebra hit the ground, the tracker pulled us up like 20 feet away,
Yeah.
which felt like, wow, we're very close. We are very close to these cats right now. No walls on the vehicle. You know what I mean? So it was, whoa, very, very exciting. And when the lions started fighting, the big male and one of the females got into this fight. The female comes and lays down right next to me, like in the grass right in front of the car. I could have scratched behind her ears. I was like, oh my god, I just started inching back.
Wow. Well, that's, I mean, that's more or less that's what you set out there to see, right? I mean, maybe not that particular scene, but the animals themselves. So, wow, you certainly um, got the whole show.
Certainly. And I feel so fortunate, so blessed. Like, I never go into nature thinking, I want to see this and this and this. Some people, they go on safari and they have like a checklist and an itinerary, and nature will never stick to a plan. And so I just felt like the luckiest person in the world. I felt so fortunate. It still feels like the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me. Uh,
Mm.
Not like I'm celebrating the death, but just, I mean, lions have to eat either way. You know, it was just lucky to see it. And then we came back for the night safari
Mm-hmm.
back to that spot, and all the lions were still there. They were just sleeping, full bellies. And then that night I crawled back into my tent, and my tent right on the river, and I heard the lions crossing the river.
Oh man, I was gonna say I don't think I would have been back in the tent that particular night. At least you knew they were fed.
Yeah, well then like the crocodiles are hissing and splashing at them. It was, oh my god, it was so crazy. And I was like, so much adrenaline that day that I just went to sleep. I was like, I felt like, okay, life mission succeeded. I saw more than I ever dreamed to see. So yeah, but like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with like faith, believing that things will be okay. And for some reason, the animals don't realize that the tents contain people. Like other people have camped there before and they've been fine. I know that, like, I heard in Botswana, some of the hyenas figured out to get into the tents and eat the people. But it's just like being in the safari vehicle. For some reason, they don't jump in and eat us. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't know why. I saw a different herd of lions sitting by a different riverbank, and there were some Zambian fishermen walking like barefoot, just with big long sticks, walking barefoot by the side of the riverbank, and the lions were watching them, like just like they watched the zebra. I was like, whoa, these men, they're brave. They're walking barefoot next to these crocodiles, these lions, these hippos. Yeah, I'm not that brave, but I did a walking safari there too with a guy with a shotgun.
The walking safari. Yeah, that makes sense. It's good. It's good. You never know. It's good to have something. I still, and I've known this about tents, the magical the magical properties of tents. It still doesn't feel like that inside them, though. If you know that how small the it's like a nylon nylon barrier between you. It's not much, but yeah. Um, That's a good point. Sort of the same in North America with bears, right?
Yeah.
They don't tend to like jump in, if you will. Don't tend to. Again, it's a lot to put faith in a tent. That's a wild experience. Pretty crazy that I like your perspective. You're setting out just to get out there, not with any real expectations, but when you do that in anything, I find that it makes it feel a lot more special when your expectations are surpassed as well.
Yes, that's true. And I have this theory that everything around us is alive, and perhaps it can sense our intentions. Like when I had scuba clients who said, I want to see this and this and this and this, they never would. Like it was only the whale sharks only came for the clients that were happy with the clownfish.
That's funny. I have a friend. He's got an equation that is happiness equals reality minus expectations. And sometimes that tends to hold true. Honestly, it's a good practice to not set yourself with super high expectations. It's also just kind of funny, as you said, the ones that are just there to see clownfish get the full show.
Oh yeah, I spent about a week helping out this film crew. They had come to Indonesia because they wanted to find dugong, and I said good luck with that, but I helped them, right? And there's no dugong. The dugong did not come for their cameras, and then the day they left, I went out swimming and the dugong swam right up to me.
Go figure. Go figure. So after that, did you head back to Malawi?
Yeah, show those pictures to the guy that said I wouldn't see it.
Oh yeah, he must have been shocked actually.
He said, "You Americans, you go to Africa, you see whatever you want."
Oh no, I mean, I think based on our conversation, that's probably not true. You're going out there with no expectations. You're spending time in nature, staying in a tent at night. Like, seems to me that that's the way to set yourself up for success, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that like gratitude is a part of it, because I was just like, wow, I'm in lion territory, Whoa, I'm not even like dead set on seeing a lion. I really wanted to, but I worked hard to let go of the force. When you're trying to force something in nature, nature always resists. Like, and I learned that when I started spearfishing. I really need a big fish. I'm so hungry. No, no way.
Right. It's kind of like, as you said earlier, with bluffing with big animals. It's like nature can tell you need to be relaxed, and just out there and calm. And those wants and needs, they show up, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like, I need to survive this wildebeest.
So, thank you for sharing. That was a wild story. Really cool. I love your perspectives on sort of travel, especially in nature as well. You're a writer. You put out a book about your experiences. What's sort of next? Are you still writing? Are you planning anything in the future? Any future travels as well?
I've settled down. I got married, so no, I'm not really set on traveling anymore. I welcome the opportunity if it presents itself, but I don't see anything in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go to Key West and go to the Hemingway house, but my focus has shifted from the books, or from travel to the books.
Are you going to be writing more?
Oh, yes. I've got a few more books on the way. There's a lot cooking. And I'm also helping other authors publish their books.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I created my publishing house, Asclepius Press. Asclepius, like the Greek god of medicine. And
Mm.
I helped one person publish his book. And I am going through some queries of other authors who'd like to get their work published. And I mean, like in the publishing landscape, there's a lot of sensitivity, but I kind of want to let authors write what they want to write. Like my publishing house is not a censoring publishing house. I like with my book, Take My Breath Far Away, it has that wonderful story that I just shared with you that, some people might not like, right? But I value the truth and I value the integrity of the story. So that's kind of the mission of the publishing house, you could say, is to heal the ills of publishing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just want to stay true to the story and what the author has to say, and I want people to be able to express themselves without any fear. Like there's some authors who they lose their publishing contracts and things like that if they express a certain opinion, and I think, it just is what it is. I want people to be themselves. So I work with authors who they don't want to fit into a box.
Right. Well, if there are any authors listening, then and you seem to fit into that mission, then look up Alice, and I'm sure she can help. It sounds like you're passionate about this, which is great.
Yes, and I would love to publish a travel memoir, another one for someone. So they can send their queries to info@asclepius.press, ASCLEPIUS.press.
I'll also actually on the page all your info, your links, website, all that stuff will be on oneofftravelstories.com. So if you have any trouble finding it, you can go there. But with that, Alice, thanks so much for coming on. It's really been a treat chatting with you. That's a wonderful, wonderful story. A really, really quite a crazy experience. But I really appreciate your perspective on travel and some of these topics as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. I love talking to you.
Well, I appreciate that. It was great talking to you as well, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
A big thank you to Alice for coming on the podcast and sharing her experience with us today. If you do want to find out more about Alice's publishing house or read her travel memoir, Take My Breath Far Away, I've got the links up on oneofftravelstories.com, where you'll be able to find her socials and her website. As always, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.